Welcome back, Defenders. Jake here. Something incredible is happening. 2 nights ago, 3 different civilian ships decided to defy Russia's Black Sea blockade. These civilian ships originated from Israel, Greece, and Georgia. Then the next night, it grew to 6 ships. 6 ships break Russia's Black Sea blockade, flaunting Russia's threats after Russia withdrew from the Black Sea grain deal. An Israeli ship was the first one to enter the Ukrainian branch of the Danube River. So on the map, this is what it looks like. Here's the coastline for Ukraine. This little dot here is Snake Island. And what these civilian ships are choosing to do is to sail along the coastline of Bulgaria and Romania because those are NATO countries. And the ships are queuing up, lining up, to go upriver on the Danube River, and this is Romanian territory. At this moment, there are US naval planes protecting these ships because this is NATO-controlled territory. And Ukraine does have 3 smaller ports along the Danube River on the border with Romania. It's not ideal. There's only 1 road and 1 rail line that can bring agricultural exports to these 3 smaller ports, but it's better than nothing. And there are civilian commercial shipping companies willing to risk it to go up the Danube River in order to fill up smaller cargo ships to export and sell to the rest of the world. Now, Ukraine is looking for solutions. How can they still get their agricultural products out now that the port city of Odessa is... I don't think any of these ships are going to try and go to Odessa. They're going to stay in NATO-controlled water. And Ukraine's foreign minister, Dmitry Kuleba, has said that Kyiv has reached an agreement with Zagreb on the use of Croatian ports on the Danube River and the Adriatic Sea. So my European geography is not perfect. I'm trying to visualize how is Ukraine going to accomplish this. And here's Croatia. Here's the Adriatic Sea. Somehow Ukraine wants to get their agricultural exports to a port in Croatia so it can then sail out into the Mediterranean. In the comments section, let me know. I don't geographically understand how this is possible. Here's the Danube River. This is Ukraine, Moldova. The river is the border between Bulgaria and Romania. The river then goes through Serbia, goes through Hungary, goes through Austria, and then into Germany. So how do you, by ship, get to the Adriatic Sea? I don't know if there's a canal lock leading to a river local in Croatia. Because I'm a geography nerd, I had to pull up a river map, and the rivers in Croatia don't look the best for navigation. So maybe, somehow, Ukraine is going to start sending their agricultural exports up the Danube River. They can do this with canals, get it somewhere in Croatia, and then by rail or truck, get it to a port on the Adriatic Sea. I'm open to solutions. I like the thinking. I like the idea. The fact that Ukraine has announced an agreement has been reached, I want to know the details. I think this is fascinating. The next story I have to report, unfortunately, is a very sad one. Another Russian missile strike in Kryvyi Rih kills 6 civilians and injures an additional 75, most of whom are women and children. This was a 9-story apartment building that Russia deliberately targeted with a long-range, high-precision Iskander missile. People were asleep in the building when the Russians struck it. Here are the faces of 2 of the victims, a mother and daughter, Natalia and Dasha. For reports on the missile strikes, I want to share this clip from Maria Avdiivka.
Morning, everyone. Also, the morning is not good for us here in Ukraine. Russia brutally attacks my country. Kharkiv was attacked with 2 S-300 missiles. Kherson was attacked at least 3 times this morning. At least 2 people killed. Terrifying images and news are coming from a Kryvyi Rih, where a Russian missile hit 9-story residential building. At this moment, at least 5 people are killed, 40 wounded, among them children. This is the daily reality where Ukraine lives. This is the daily reality which Russia brings us. And this is why Ukraine has the full right to fight back, to respond, to destroy Russian rare bases, to destroy Russian routes of supply, to destroy launching stations for Russian S-300 missiles. Because if we do not do that, Russia will crush Ukraine. And this is why we are fighting. And we will fight till the end, till our victory. Please stand with Ukraine, support us. Slava Ukraini!
Ukraine is going to continue fighting back and defending itself. Here's an interview I'll link down below of President Zelensky. This clip is 2 minutes long, but I'm just going to play for you what he says in the beginning of the clip.
Відданість. Абсолютна відданість. Свобода або смерть. Ні, саме так. Це такий вибір. І тому він...
Freedom or death. That is Ukraine's only options. Anybody on social media arguing that Ukraine should go to the negotiating table, Ukraine should promise neutrality, Ukraine should give concessions to territory and just go for peace with Russia. Russia's never going to allow peace with Ukraine. If there is a freeze in the conflict and Russia is allowed to keep any territory, then they're just going to build up their forces, build up their missile stockpiles for a couple years, and attack Ukraine again. Russia is never going to stop attacking Ukraine. Ukraine's only option is freedom or death. Given what the Russians did to the civilian population in cities like Izium and Bucha the first weeks of the war, this was always Russia's plan. Russia's plan was always genocide, extermination of the Ukrainian national identity, and to Russify the entire population. Maria Lvova-Belova claims 700,000 Ukrainian children have been illegally deported from Ukraine to Russia. So this is the woman in charge of Russia's child abduction program. She's wanted by The Hague because targeting children, relocating children, exterminating the ethnic and national identity of children is the textbook definition of genocide, internationally recognized by the Geneva Conventions, signed by the Russians. Russia doesn't care. Genocide was always their goal. Maria Lvova-Belova takes pride in the fact that hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian children have been taken from Ukraine, relocated to Russia. Many of these children have had their names changed, they've had their birthdays changed so they can't be found, and they've been given to random families across Siberia in order to eradicate their Ukrainian ethnic and national identity. This is who the Russians are. So after latest Moscow strike, Zelensky warns drone war is coming to Russia. I think Ukraine has been investing hundreds of millions of dollars into developing their own domestic drone industry. The reason why is obvious. NATO has told Ukraine, all the weapons we give you, you cannot use on Russian soil. You can use NATO weapons to attack the occupied territories, liberate your own territory, but you can't use them to strike within Russia. So for Ukraine's domestic military production, it makes sense. Focus on drones. Drones that can go deep into Russian territory and strike valid military targets. So 2 nights ago, Moscow was struck, and it was struck again last night. Were our air defenses asleep? Russians react to Moscow drone attack. TV news is silent. So 2 nights ago, this commercial building in Moscow, which houses, it's reported, houses 6 different government ministry agencies, was struck by a drone. And there was a lot of confusion. Was this the deliberate target, or did the Russians use electronic means to bring the drone down, and the Russians are the one who caused it to crash in this building? Well, the same building was struck again last night. So I do believe this was the deliberate target by either the Ukrainians or partisans inside of Russia. So here's what the building currently looks like. Now, these buildings are being struck at nights when workers are not inside. I don't support civilians being attacked. But if this is a government building housing government agencies who are planning and participating in this war, then this entire building is a valid military target. Now, here's an interesting video. This is not from the attack the last 3 nights. This was from the June 30th drone attack. But the video was only surfaced on social media yesterday. So let me show you what one of these office buildings in Moscow looked like after being struck with a drone.
Помещение через ближайшие выходы. Внимание! Это предупреждение о пожарной опасности. Пожалуйста, покиньте помещение через ближайшие выходы. Внимание! Это предупреждение о пожарной опасности. Пожалуйста, покиньте помещение через ближайшие выходы. Внимание! Это предупреждение о пожарной опасности. Пожалуйста, покиньте помещение через ближайшие выходы. Внимание! Это предупреждение.
It looks like something out of an apocalypse movie. So what is Russia's response? I think they're not talking about this attack on Kremlin state TV because they don't have a response. There's nothing they can do to stop these drone attacks. They've already promised severe consequences for, F-16s being announced, for the Crimean bridge being struck. All of these red lines. You can't use Storm Shadow missiles on Crimea. Every red line that Russia puts up, promising stern or severe consequences, Russia's already doing everything they're capable of doing. There's nothing more that they can do. And here's an interesting graph showing the number of missiles fired by the Russians the last 3 months, May, June, and July. This doesn't count all these Iranian Shahid drones. These are just Russian missiles fired and then what Ukraine has successfully intercepted. So Russia, leading up to Ukraine's counteroffensive, deliberately was targeting Lviv and Kyiv far beyond the front lines in order to hold additional air defense systems like the Patriots towards those civilian cities. They didn't want the Patriots on the front lines when Ukraine started advancing. How much longer can Russia keep this up? All we have are estimates. It's obvious that Russia is still finding the necessary components to build more missiles. They do have a certain production rate every month, maybe 8 to 10 if they can accelerate it, but yeah, I don't see how Russia can continue this pace of missiles firing when this far exceeds what they can domestically produce every month. We do have good news as far as Russian supply lines being crippled. This was, I think, almost a week ago, but Ukraine successfully struck the Chonhar Bridge. So here is the Chonhar Bridge for civilian traffic, but the rail line is slightly to the west of the road. And Ukraine struck it with a storm shadow, and the Russians didn't want to admit this rail line was out of commission. They released this photo saying that the rail line was fine, and Ukraine did not successfully strike it. But we have satellites, and within a couple days, we got satellite confirmation that, yeah, this rail line is jacked up. A civilian in the area also made it to the tracks, took this picture. If this is Russia's #1 priority, they could probably fix this rail line within a week, but that means for a week, Russia can't resupply their forces in Zaporizhia and Kherson through this rail line. Yes, the Russians can still come from the east through Mariupol, but this is the line they prefer. They want logistics and supplies safely going across the Kerch Strait Bridge and then the Chanhar rail line in order to resupply Melitopol, Tokmak, and Berdansk. It's just a nightmare, it's a mess, it's never going to get better for Russia. Let me share this meme with you here. If you think your job is pointless, think about those who repair the Kerch Strait Bridge. They already fixed this bridge once, it was struck again. They're going to keep working on it, but it's not going to make it for the it's never going to be repaired. This bridge before December, which is their current timeline for fixing it, there's zero chance it's still going to be standing. And the Kerch Strait Bridge is currently being fenced off with anti-naval drone barriers. Ukraine successfully struck this last month with jet ski drones or something. And Russia's finally getting serious about putting up these goofy barriers. It's not going to work, but they're trying. They're really trying. When we check in with the war map, there's not a whole lot to report. Up here in the Luhansk and Kharkiv region, there were all these fears that Russia was getting serious about going on the offensive again. Reports were coming out of 100,000 Russian soldiers and 900 tanks, and they were going to drive the Ukrainians to the other side of the Oskil River. Well, this offensive has fallen flat on its face. It's completely failed. Russia momentarily advanced through some fields, but within a couple days, Ukraine counterattacked and pushed them back. So no, Russia is not making progress in the Kharkiv or Luhansk region. Kherson, Zaporizhia, Donetsk, all of these areas at the moment appear frozen. And a clip I want to share with you guys from Kremlin State TV was talking about Avdiivka. I've not really spoken about Avdiivka because in the last year and a half, Russia has made no progress. This magenta area is where the Russians started the war a year and a half ago, and they've only been able to advance, this is like 100 meters down this road. For the last year and a half, the brave, heroic defenders have held off the Russian forces in Avdiivka. And this guy, on Kremlin State TV, had a moment of clarity, wondering, how can our ground forces be so ineffective that after a year and a half, we can't even take the city of Avdiivka? So let me read for you what this Russian propagandist said. I brought a medal for the defense of Avdiivka. My son brought me this medal from there. It's numbered. I just want to... I'm a little bit offended and even ashamed that for a year and a half, we can't even take Avdiivka. We can't surround it and blockade it to cut it off from the supply routes there. So I guess this Russian guy has a son currently in the Russian military. We have a medal for the defense of Leningrad, Odessa, Sevastopol, the Caucasus, Stalingrad, North Polar region. And here, for Avdiivka, which on a map you can cover with your little finger. I don't know, maybe I'm, as a military man who graduated from 4 universities, I don't understand why we can't do it, or if there are some economic, political issues at stake here, and all the neighboring cities of Donetsk region, Makivka and others are suffering. People are asking us to move the front line. We have moved 2 kilometers at the level of the 14 year. Well, we need to do everything that we have been striking now for these 2 weeks. That's about as hypothetical as I can think of. Gather it all up, hit it all at once in one fell swoop with heavy airplane bombs, Grad and Ergen systems, Smerch, everything we can. We should napalm everything there so that civilians, including children, old men, and women, don't die on our soil. This guy then asks, is your son on the front lines? And he says, no, he's in Syria. So if you're the son of a well-known, prominent, or wealthy individual in Russia, you're going to be protected. You're going to be put in the Russian Navy in the Pacific. the Russian Navy in the Arctic, or even being sent to Africa and Syria is a safer option for the sons of important people than going to the front lines in Ukraine. Yeah, year and a half, Russia can't even take Avdiivka, and they're handing out medals. They're handing out medals for people defending Avdiivka. It looks like Dmitry Medvedev put down the bottle long enough to get a tweet out, and this is what he says. By repelling the collective enemy's counteroffensive, our armed forces are defending Russian citizens and our land. It is quite clear to all decent people. Besides that, they are preventing global conflict. Just imagine that the NATO-supported Ukro-Banderovsky's offensive turned out successful and they took away a part of our land. Then we would have to, following the president's decree, he meant to say decree, but he said degree, use the nuclear weapon. Dmitry Medvedev tweets out about once a month that Russia is going to use nuclear weapons if the West does this. Now he's saying that if Ukraine's counteroffensive is successful, Russia will have to use nuclear weapons. The problem with this argument, Dmitry, is that Russia's already lost territory that they claimed was their sovereign territory. Russia legally annexed the city of Kherson, then surrendered. They lost the city of Kherson. Kherson was supposed to be Russian territory forever. Ukraine took it back. They liberated the city. Russia did nothing. Russia, as far as nuclear weapons, is going to do nothing once Ukraine expels their military from all their territory. If anyone is ever concerned or making nonsense comments about Russia using nuclear weapons, be sure to refer my video I made 7 months ago, Why Russia Will Not Use Nuclear Weapons in Ukraine. I still stand by everything I said in this video. I'll link it down below if you haven't seen it. And here's a strong response from Republican Senator from South Carolina, Lindsey Graham. To my Russian friends who talk about using nuclear weapons in Ukraine, you need to understand that that would be an attack on NATO itself, given Ukraine's proximity to NATO territory. Time to sober up, realize that your barbaric invasion of Ukraine is not working, withdraw, and save many young Russians from a pointless death. Every Russian man currently dying in Ukraine for this pointless war is dying for nothing because Russia is going to lose this war. Final couple feel-good stories I have for you. The first one is the progress being made on the Ukrainian Motherland Monument, getting this communist trash off their shield. The workers have been working on the shield the last couple days. So here's the video. The moment the old Soviet hammer and sickle was finally removed from the Motherland Monument. Looking good. That has to be a satisfying day at work for the men bringing down these old symbols of Soviet oppression. Final clip I have for you is just the boys going for a ride in their Humvee.
Ну що я вам скажу, отак ми їздимо, блядь. Видимость нульова, йдемо по приборах. Студент їбаше, блядь, все заєбісь. Льова, Валерій Іванович. Так, отак ми й хуяримо.
I realize this is a very mundane video, but I enjoy seeing stuff like this. One, you can see the windows have been riddled with bullets, so this Humvee has saved some lives. But they've just got snacks on the dashboard, the equivalent of dice hanging from where the rear view mirror should be. This guy turns his camera around and, the guys in the back are on their phones, probably watching TikToks or communicating with family and friends. You can even see there's a head of somebody stuck in the way back behind all their gear. I wish these guys luck. I hope they can defeat Russia soon. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.